in my big mouth went home, and I was like, I'm not funny. And my brother goes, yeah, right. My other brother bet me $50 that I wouldn't go on stage for the open mic, and that was it.
Welcome to the first episode of the Wooden Spoon podcast, the sit down. We are here with the incredibly talented, the incredibly funny Tammy Pescatelli.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being on. We're in the green room at Helium in Buffalo, and Tammy's doing a weekend here.
I'm not going to spank anybody with this as my mother used to. Your mother didn't do that to you.
Yeah,
You're too little.
It's funny because I go to the Italian festivals all the time, and people ask me, "Oh, you're too young for that." But I was kind of like on that edge of like, where it was more of a threat, really. But my nonna would all just haul off and hit me sometimes.
They didn't care.
No,
they had no. I think they used to teach each other how to do that, right? Like, just hit him in the back, a little scafumbach, no one will know.
I get a shoe tossed at me a lot too.
You had the shoe?
Oh yeah.
Oh, my grandmother never did the shoe.
So that's one of the questions. Like, what's your experience with the wooden spoon? So if you want to.
Well, they always had them hanging on the wall, of course, giant ones, and the fork too. And they had a wooden spoon and a wooden fork because that completed the dining room. But we used to get hit. But we used to get hit with anything that was around.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like beatings, but you
get mouthed off, then you got hit with the remote.
A loaf of bread, the remote, whatever was around. You know what I mean? Like it just whatever. My father threw an orange at me once and hit me in the back of the head. He didn't mean. Now that one was a rough one because I said something smart and turned around and then he had the orange and he was peeling the orange and then he just threw it and hit it and bang it out.
My nonna was making sauce. We had tomatoes from the garden. My cousin and I got into like a tomato fight one time.
No, wait, in the house?
In the basement. It was like a bar set up in the basement.
Sure, well the basement, the second kitchen.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what was I gonna say? So growing up, were you always kind of like funny and like mouthing off with kind of like almost like the class clown figure? Like,
no, I wasn't the class clown because I know I was afraid of my parents, but I was always very sarcastic. Yep. Always super sarcastic. I think that comes from growing up in an Italian family. Like when I watch shows like Nick Cannon has that show where they do that little roasting,
the Wild
and Out, and they go, they roast each other a little bit, kind of, and like we did that all the time. Like you couldn't have a Sunday dinner. There was always something. We had the one uncle that would get so drunk he'd pee himself. And sit around drinking his own homemade wine. The relatives would come from Italy and smuggle cheese in the country. Like now they, INS would come and get them or whatever. But I mean, we all had those crazy stories. And I grew up in a family that I wasn't first generation. I was second generation. But my grandparents never really spoke English till the day they died. Yeah.
Now, how did that help? Did that help you get into comedy? What was the moment where you're like, all right, I'm gonna become a stand-up comedian?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. First of all, I'll never forget when I did say I was going to be a stand-up. My grandfather was still alive, and I called him and Papa, I'm gonna be a stand-up, and he said, "Are you a lesbian?" Because he thought all female comedians were lesbians,
so
and it was so cute. A lesbian, I'm like, that is the sweetest. Sounds like something you shouldn't get wet after midnight. It was so. No, I'm not coming out. I'm going up. It's not. It was so cute.
That's so funny.
It's okay. I no care. I love you. I love you.
That's so sweet.
I love you.
It's funny because with Italian parents, they'll at first they just want you to be safe and secure, but after a while it's undying support. Was that?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
It just depends on who. He was pretty amazing. Everybody else in my family was predicting horrific failure. Yeah. Because they just want. I think. Well, I grew up on comedy, not in the house, though. That's the funny thing. In the house, it was always kind of gloom and doom because they're always waiting. Don't say a compliment. You'll get the Malloy. Make it the thing. Don't say that. Don't tell anybody. If you went on a scratch off, no say nothing. No say. No telling the people. The people they're gonna want the money. They're gonna think we got the money.
Do you still kind of almost have some of that still to this day?
I have a little bit of it. I
have that a little bit too.
I went to therapy to deprogram all that out of it. And then it's funny, I deprogrammed all of that out. And then I met my husband and married him, and his family is worse than mine ever was because he's first generation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
And they're 10 times worse. Like, I grew up in the family that, you know, they just cared what society. Italian people will give the best piece of meat to the stranger.
Yep.
And the kids will be eating pasta and beans in the back,
yeah,
you know, but right? But this stranger gets the steak.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't do that. Like, they take for them, they feed their family first, and you know, and they cared about everything. That's why everybody had to have clean. Everything had to be clean all the time, and everybody was a putan. And I wasn't allowed to spend the night over this one's house because she was a putan. Don't go over there. I'm like, Ma, she's not. She's 6. Like, could she be? We're not. You know.
That's funny, but you still bring a lot of that into your comedy, like today.
Yeah, I mean,
because I've listened to a lot of your stuff, and it's like there's like hints at it too, but which it all like kind of comes together.
Well, I'll tell you what happened to me early on. It's all I talked about because it's all I knew. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. All I could talk about was my family. They say talk about something that you know. So that's what I would talk about. Then I did this show, Last Comic Standing, and that was the year they had like 18 million viewers, and it blew up, and everybody, and people were saying to me, well, it was weird because they kind of on that show edited me because Sopranos was very popular then. Okay. And they kind of edited me to look like a walking meatball. Like as if anything I was saying was like, hey, we're to be. And that's part of me, but that's not who I am all the way. And so I had a manager at the time was like, yeah, you should probably back up from the Italian stuff a little bit. So I did, and then my friend Sebastian comes flying in and sells out Madison Square Garden with it. So it's a weird thing. Like, you know, I mean, I am who I am. It's never going to go away, but it's not all, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a neat idea. It's sad to me, too, because I want to talk about it because that culture is going away.
No, for sure.
You know, we were a culture that had a lot of depth and a lot of, you know, my husband said, you know, we have all the best. He's a comic too, and he goes, we have the best. I'm quoting Luca Polanca's joke. Is that Italian people have the best clothes, the best art, the best cars, right? You know, he goes, the best athletes, Michael Jordan. So it was so funny. So.
That's funny. So your husband's also an Italian comic?
Well, he's more of an actor. Like, he really used to get cast in things to act. But yes, he's a stand-up.
That's cool.
I didn't meet him in comedy. I met him through a completely separate group of friends. But he was part of the circle that I was friends with at the Comedy Store. I knew of him. Myself, Sebastian, Brett Ernst, John Caparulo, Mike Marino.
I was just listening to you on Joey Diaz, too.
Joey Diaz, Rogan, we were all...
That's so cool.
Yeah, we were all part of that group, but I didn't know him. I met him through... I lived in a stripper colony, and I met him through, like, weird... Yeah, weird stuff that would never happen. You know what my grandmother would have done if she knew I lived next door? She'd have made me move, for sure. She wouldn't have even let me live there.
If I told my mom where I was driving today, like right now, she'd be worried about.
Right? Always something. Call me when you get there. You're going to be asleep. Why am I calling you?
I know. She'll still stay up till 3, 4 in the morning sometimes, I'm sure. And it'll never go away.
That's so sweet. That's good, though.
Yep,
I'm that way with my son. I mean, he's 11. And I'm going to be just as crazy and just, you know, I mean...
Do you see yourself almost like kind of becoming your parents in a way? Like with some of their like tendencies?
Some, you know, the protective level. I'm way cooler than my mother ever was. I think I get it a little bit more. But I see what, you know, it was good values. It was good family things, you know, like... I make sure that he knows family first, family first, family first, and I think that's
big.
important.
That my family, like right before I came here, I had dinner. Just my dad and my sister were the only ones home, so we ate dinner together, and that's traditions we always pass.
Yeah, that's important. And then it also depends. Like, my parents didn't do it with my youngest brother. Like they did. I guess I don't know what happened over time. Like maybe because he was the youngest. and he like goes with whatever girl he's with, their family, and it drives me crazy. And I'm like, my son can't do that. I only have one. So if he goes with the girl, I guess I'm gonna have to go too. So I go, if you go to your girlfriend's house, you better make sure she has room for your dad and I.
That's so funny. So back to like the comedy. So like, when did you like start like making stand-up a career?
Oh, I'm sorry, never. So I wanted to be an actress. That's what I wanted to do. I did all the plays and stuff in high school. And I went to my guidance counselor in high school. And I said, I want to be an actress. And I grew up in a small suburb of Cleveland. And she said, you're from here. No one from here has ever been on TV. She's like, if you want to be on TV, you're going to have to rob a bank. No. And she said it in like a serious way, not like a joke. And it crushed me. But I love stand-up. And like Eddie Murphy's having a comeback. He was my guy. Like
he was like your one inspiration.
I had every single one of his tapes. I wasn't allowed to either. So I snuck him in the house and went in the closet with like a sleeping bag over my head and was listening really quietly, right? Yeah, I can quote any Eddie Murphy thing. And so I loved it.
Delirious and Eddie Murphy Raw fan.
Oh, well, then you should listen to his very first album, Eddie Murphy.
Okay.
Where he talks about his family, living with his grandmother and stuff. It's hysterical. But so I guess I got sarcasm there. And then my parents moved when I was in college. And I had broken up with my high school boyfriend. We dated all the way through college and stuff. And I didn't know anybody. I was 21 and I'm living in a strange town. And they had a Funny Bone. And I went to the Funny Bone and got a job as a waitress because I was only supposed to be there for the summer because I was supposed to be a fashion design major. And I thought, I'll see comedy and I'll make some money and maybe have some friends. Well, a woman came through the second week and she was an MC, not a house MC, she was an MC. And all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, women do this? When she was young, she was kind of like a little bit older than me. And I was like, I'm as funny as she is. And I, in my big mouth, went home and I was like, I'm that funny. And my brother goes, yeah, right. My other brother bet me $50 that I wouldn't go on stage for the open mic. And that was it. Open mic night. 2 weeks later, they had sponsored by radio station. The radio station asked me to do the morning show the next week. I was the co-host on the morning show. The host left. It became my show. I got a co-host. I became the house MC at night. And you know, I met comics. I would have them on my show, do something similar to what you're doing now, except it was radio. And then when I left, I quit and I went to work 42 weeks in a year, the first year as an MC, because I went with comics like Dom Irera, who amazing comics, or D.L. Hughley or George Lopez, who helped me very much.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap up soon because you got a show that we're staying for.
Sorry, I don't mean to.
No, it's fine.
Just
so what are we gonna see anything like family related on stage?
Oh my God,
today?
this is. It's no espresso. That's what I'll say. Yeah, always. That's all I talk about. Really, is my family, but in different directions. And now my mother-in-law is crazier than my grandparents ever could be. And my mother-in-law doesn't think that I'm Italian. Because I'm not from Bari. That's where they're from, Mola de Bari, my husband's family, okay? We're Sicilian. They treat Sicilians as if and you're Napoletan, so that's different, right? Is that where you're from?
Kind of Napoletan. My mom's like from in between Rome and Naples.
Okay.
And my dad's Sicilian.
So wait,
well, he's Sicilian, not Italian, I'm sure. Are you guys Sicilian, not Italian?
Well, it's a weird thing. So, right. Yeah. So my mother-in-law, and there's who's the comic out of Canada that's so funny? He's my friend Frank Spadone. He does a thing about how, like, the Barres and the Moles, they have a different dialect. They sound like a New Orleans Cajun, and I can understand a lot of Italian, but they sound like idiots. and she thinks that I'm bad because I don't cook, but I do. I don't cook because my husband's a better cook, not because I can't. You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, and she's a lunatic. I love my mother-in-law, but, you know, she's crazy, and I married into crazy, and I came from crazy, and,
that's so awesome.
You know.
Well, I'm excited to see it all end up on stage.
You'll have to take a look. I'm hoping to, at some point, revamp that show that I did, a stand-up mother, because it was about me being a wife, a mother, and a comedian, and moving to a small town to raise my son. and my mother-in-law became like the star of it. Everybody
awesome.
loved Rosie. Everybody thought it was fake, the stuff that she did, and it was all true, all based on true stories.
That's awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up then. Anything that you want to plug, dates, anything like that?
If you can't afford Sebastian, come see me.
All right, thank you guys for watching episode 1 of the Sit Down. Everything's in the description about t-shirts. We got the upcoming show with Anthony Rodia, and talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Peace.